how do I let that part of me go so I can move forward and not have time rule me right now?
I met somebody that was taking home $1 million a month. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I don't want to have to ask permission from people.
Why do these people make so much more money than you?
Go have your direct experience with something.
But like, I don't see them as any smarter or more hardworking.
Your relationship failed because I don't think there's a one size fits all for everything and anything, whether it's business, family, parenting. I have to look at within myself quite often, is that artistry possibly holding back my entrepreneurship?
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Logan and Faiez Show. Logan, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. Just ready to start ranting.
Let's do it. This is a show where it's just two dudes. We're entrepreneurs. We like to talk about life, business, relationships, marriage.
Spirituality a little bit.
Spirituality, and it all comes down to what's going on underneath the surface as we navigate like the day-to-day, what's going on in our life, hitting our goals, being the best husbands, father that we can be, and like, what are the feelings underneath that? So
what's going on in the internal to create in the external?
So let's get into it.
All right, let's do it.
You got a little bit activated about people shaming parents.
I wanted to get your take on that. I know it's part of the social media world and the internet world and just this world in general of judgment and shame that people want to put towards other people, whether it's just about their relationship, about their business, about just them personally, about parenting. I think I just see it a lot more in parenting, obviously, because I'm a parent now and my algorithm is full of parenting stuff. But I don't know why I got so fired up. I saw this, I think it was because it was a guy sharing his feelings about his relationship with his wife and what's going on with their kids. And yes, there was a ton of great comments in his feed, but then there was a lot of negative ones. Basically, what he had said is they have 3 kids, and in this season of life, they don't really get date nights. They don't really have a lot of time to connect. They haven't taken a trip as a family or as a couple since their kids have been born. But he was saying, I'm okay with that. My wife is okay with that. This is what we signed up for when we had kids. We look forward to the day we become empty nesters and we get to go back to these things, or maybe even when they get to like 12, 13 years old or a little bit older. But essentially he was saying, our relationship is good. This is what we signed up for. It's okay that we're in this season of life.
So what's wrong with that?
Exactly.
What's wrong with that? What do
People got so fired up about like, oh, tell me how that goes for your relationship in 10 years. Tell me what that's like when your kids leave the house. Oh, you're never going to connect with your partner. That's a real good man. Like just all these shameful comments. And in my head, I'm like, you have no fucking clue what their relationship is like. Zero clue. Maybe that's completely fine with them that they don't get a lot of opportunities to connect. Maybe their relationship is so close as it is that they don't need those moments. Or maybe they're willing to sacrifice those things and are consciously aware that, yes, maybe it could damage their closeness a little bit. I don't even want to say damage. Maybe it could affect their closeness a little bit. But they're hyper aware of it and they know that and they say, you know what? We're willing to do this for our kids right now and this is what we have to do. I admire that in people. And then you hear a lot of people say, oh, you can't put your kids first. You need to put your marriage first. Sure, maybe in some cases that needs to happen. But I don't think there's a one size fits all for everything and anything, whether it's business, family, parenting, relationships. You got to do what works for you. And if this is what's working in their season of life, great for them. Great.
I love the word season. Like there's season, and then if everybody is different and if everybody is in a different season of life, then obviously we're all drawing upon like different tools in order to navigate, you know, where we're at in a given moment. And so there's like a strain in those comments of like, oh, I've been there before. Like I know better than you. So let me know how that works out in 10 years.
Yeah.
And honestly, there may be some experience that is worth hearing about from that person. But we've talked about it in a previous episode, which is like, you can't shame somebody into understanding your point of view.
No.
So like, what was your intention with that comment? Was it to actually help the content creator course correct, or was it to make them feel like an idiot?
Yeah.
It was probably to make them feel like an idiot, in which case, like, fuck 'em.
And maybe your relationship failed because you didn't have connection. That doesn't mean their relationship is going to fail because of the way they're doing it.
Very cognizant of the energy that I put out, because other people may not be aware of it, but I know that that's just a reflection of what's going on with me internally. So if I'm sitting here criticizing you, that just means I'm criticizing myself internally. If I think you're going to fail, it just means I think I'm going to fail.
Yeah.
What you said reminded me of content I've seen. Like, my wife and I went through like a really hard financial period 18 months ago to 2 years ago. And ever since then, we recognize like we have to change certain habits about ourselves. So we've gone through like a string of hiring financial coaches, and we've started doing like a couple of years ago, we started doing weekly financial dates. Every Sunday for an hour, we sit down, categorize our expenses. We look at our budget, like boring stuff, but like we conduct a marital financial meeting every week. And it has removed, like, it's given us a boundary and a basis to have financial conversations, which is one of the leading causes of divorces, by the way. And it gives us like a common language, and it gives us like a safe space to get into that stuff. And I've seen content about people that are like, once a year, my wife and I, we do like our annual planning, or like, this is how we divide up the household chores. And, this is how we communicate about certain topics. And negative comments will be like, I don't want to have a business relationship in my house. And I'm like, wow, you're like completely missing the point.
Right.
Maybe it's not for you, but like, that doesn't mean that it's not for other people. And so.
And again, it goes back to, is it serving everybody's best interest that is involved? Is it helping your household? Is it helping your relationship? Is it helping your finances? Maybe that guy doesn't need to do the business side of things in their family. Who knows?
Maybe
but it's
not.
what works for you,
Yeah, and also he probably does.
I know.
That's why he's getting so worked up about it. When you get worked up about a thing, it's because you probably think that's a weakness of yours.
Exactly.
Like, right? And you're sensitive about it. It's like poking on a sore spot. You're, ow! A negative comment is nothing more than an ow.
I guess I'm just
It's an owie.
Like, I guess I just want people to cheer other people on no matter what. And I'm so tired of seeing negative comments.
This is the only way to rectify that is to swoop in with some positive comments, right?
Yeah, yeah.
As it relates to business, in my 20s, it was a whole journey of judging my own goals as they related to business. I was judging myself through the quote unquote eyes of others, right? And that led to one of the most important business failures of my life. And it was because I didn't know what I wanted. And one of the underlying reasons was how it would look, how the level of success of the business might look. And the difference is, this could sound like really ridiculous depending on who's listening. But like, for some people, a $1 million business sounds really big. For other people, a $10 million business sounds really big. Both, by the way, by definition of the government, are small businesses.
Yeah.
A $50 million business sounds like fucking peanuts if you work at IBM, right? A $1 billion business sounds like you're just getting started if you're on the NASDAQ 500, right? So like there's levels.
Right.
And then, you could go bootstrapped route. You could go raise venture capital. You could start out with money from your parents, like whatever it might be. There's so many different ways to go about business. There are lifestyle entrepreneurs. There are solo entrepreneurs. There are venture-backed entrepreneurs. There's so many flavors of this shit. And when you're early in inexperienced, it's really easy, especially now, to look at Instagram and be like, what am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to do? And I know about myself now with clarity is that like, I'm a bootstrapped entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
I'm the same way.
And I think it's because we both cherish a level of autonomy in our lives, right? Like if I wanted to go the venture-backed route, you're basically getting money and selling a substantial stake in your business. And over time you sell more and more stake in your business. And you eventually you become answerable to those investors. Your board becomes your bosses, even if you're the CEO. And my friends that are venture-backed entrepreneurs, oh my God, they are constantly battling their board. And it's just like, that's not what I want.
That becomes your life. You're not even running the company anymore. You're just battling the board.
It becomes a huge part of your role. If you're a Fortune 500 CEO, a publicly traded CEO, managing shareholders and board and public perception is like a huge part of your responsibility.
By the way, this is why I think it's fine that CEOs are paid what they're paid, because they have to do that shit.
That is a fun conversation to have. That's a very fun. I want to talk about that. But as it relates to me, at least in this stage of my life, that's not what fires me up.
Yeah.
I like creativity, right? I also like the autonomy to make decisions that aren't purely financially motivated.
I don't want to have to ask permission from people.
Yeah.
That's how I am.
Fuck that.
I want
And there's nothing wrong with that. If you enjoy that level of accountability to others purely on financial motives, like, you're a fucking rock star. Like, that may be your path. I just know it's not mine anymore.
And maybe your business model needed that 20, 30, $50 million right up front, and you had no other choice but to do that.
Also true.
Yeah.
If you're building an AI startup that's going to transform the way we
You
blah,
can't
blah,
bootstrap
blah,
that.
you're not going to bootstrap that, right? And that just took a lot of reps and, quite frankly, painful failures for me to learn and admit to myself. I was always 1 foot in, 1 foot out, like how aggressively we were going to scale. What was the vision of scale that we were going to reach? And then there was, honestly, now that I look back, there's always been a level to me that loves, there's this book called Small Giants, and it's like meaningfully big businesses between, 50 million to $1 billion, but they purposefully stopped growing at a certain point because growth would come at the expense of culture, whether that meant the value they delivered to their employees, to their community, or to their customers. And so they purposefully chose to stay at $20 million or $200 million, because to 2x or 3x again, they would have had to forego certain values that they didn't want to forego. And I love that. That's what lights me up, not, grow at all costs. If you look at the long tail of entrepreneurship, as in the majority of people want to be solopreneurs. They want to be lifestyle entrepreneurs. They want to own their own small business, like a studio, to support their family, but not have to work in a corporate environment.
I mean, I think about it all the time with this studio. Like, do I want to expand and get bigger? And there's part of me that loves the small, cozy comfort feel of me being able to run this by myself.
Totally.
I want to bring on help, but also, do I want to have to manage a bunch of employees and go bigger?
That's a great question.
It does really come down. There is a risk reward. There is a, how much money do I want to make? How much do I want to change, like, my own individual culture that I get right now? For
this to become 2 studios into 4 studios into 8 studios, you'll have to change at each level.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can be Logan, the hyper detail oriented video guy who designs every detail of the studio, right? You're basically, don't tell me if I'm wrong, but you're an artist at heart.
Yes.
And this studio is an expression of that facet of you.
And it's actually something I have to look at within myself quite often. Is that artistry possibly holding back my entrepreneurship?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want the business to grow, it's not that the artist has to die to any extent, but then you have to consciously bring up the business skill set.
I mean, my photography artistry already has taken a hit, I don't want to say died, but I do far fewer projects for photography now that I'm managing the studio.
For sure.
Thank God I still get to have my artistry involved in the studio, but yeah.
My favorite thing to do in any company that I work in is host weekly book club. It's like the nerdy thing, but like I tell you, any employee that has ever been a part of one of my book clubs messages me years later, and they'll like learn some shit somewhere else. They'll be like, oh my God, this reminds me of book club. Like, it makes a meaningful impact. It's one of my strategies to get people to become better at their job without asking for help all the time, because I get them to think about things deeply. And so one of the books that we're book clubbing right now is about, it's E-Myth. It's like a super popular book. It's about like building systems and processes so that you can have a turnkey model for your business. Like, if you wanted to go from 1 to 10 studios, how would you do that? You'd have to kind of have a playbook, right? And so a lot of entrepreneurs get into the game because they're a very skilled technician. They may be a really good baker. They may be a really good chef. They may be a really good photographer or videographer. And somebody tells them at some point, hey, why are you doing it for this studio? Like, you should have your own studio. And you're like, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to have my own studio. And then the technician runs into the problem of, oh shit, I'm running a business now. And even though I'm an excellent videographer, I don't know how to run a business. And then you have to go through the learning curve of building the entrepreneurial and the managerial skill set. So the technician is a videographer. The entrepreneur is the visionary, right? Like, always on what's next. But then the manager has to manage the present moment, what's going on now. And so it comes back to, like, what do you want out of life? Like, not you specifically, but in general, what do I want out of life? Do I want to remain the artist and I don't care about growing the business as much? Cool. There are great examples of people that make different levels of money remaining the artist. But then maybe you are really passionate, like, no, every city deserves to have a studio like this. Well, then you have to make decisions accordingly and become and develop skill sets to make that vision a reality.
Or you're like me and just stubborn and I'm like, I can do it all.
Yeah, that was my wife's motto when I met her, and I not literally, metaphorically beat that out of her.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that shit.
No, I know. I don't really either. I am trying to do, I think I get bits and pieces of it. Like, the studio allows me to still be an artist. Some of my editing gigs that I still do allow me to be an artist. Luckily, taking a bunch of photos of my family keeps my photography artistry there. Truthfully, the product that I'm developing, that's the thing where I want to be the fucking CEO. I want to run that business. I want to make it worth $50 million or $100 million or whatever. And then sell that thing and ride off into the sunset. So I'm delicately balancing both right now, I think, but who knows? Maybe that's an illusion that I'm balancing those.
It was born out of your artist streak, though. You looked at one of these things and you're like, this could be so much better.
It totally was. I'm like, fuck this thing. It needs to be better.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, anyway.
I realized this morning that this podcast is helping me a lot. So, because I get to talk about this shit. I woke up with anxiety on Monday. I woke up with anxiety today. Why? Because I have to work on my least favorite gig on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I saw my brain doing this thing again. And it was like, not looking forward to certain meetings today. And it was getting frustrated about certain facts of the equation. And I was being negative, and I was like, whoa. And I just sat there for like straight up 3 minutes. I just paused and I just sat there. And I just kind of watched my mind. And I was like, you're reacting. You're reacting because you don't feel good, period. You don't feel good. And now I'm reacting and I'm externalizing blame. And then I did what we've talked about. I said, okay, let me figure it out. And then I just started figuring it out. And I didn't know. And that's what I was reacting to. I was like, I don't know how to figure this out. Like, there's not enough resources. There's not enough time. I don't know how to give this any more time. I don't know if I don't know. And I just started looking for other things to blame. And so once I paused, I said, well, how do you go from I don't know to I know? I fucking opened up a note and I just started listing out everything that I know and I don't know, and just started working on it. And I'm like, okay, I just got to do that over and over again.
Man, it's interesting. Yesterday, I had to take a moment because I was working on one of Casey's videos. Long story short, it took about 4 to 5 hours as opposed to 1 hour that I've been knocking them out in. I was getting really frustrated. Like, I think the one thing that can frustrate me the most is when I feel like there's a waste of time. Like, time is so valuable to me now. And I think it should be the most valuable thing to anybody, honestly. It's your time. But I found myself getting super frustrated yesterday that it was taking me so much time to get it done. I had to take my moment and be like, well, why am I so attached to this time right now? I think it's because lately I've been thinking I'm kind of falling into that trap of, man, there's so much more I could be getting done. I think I'm a little too much in the hustle right now, partly because I feel this pressure of, I don't know if it was, I think it was when I hit 42.
Bro, you're 42. You're not even in your mid 40s.
I know, but
I get it.
50 comes up fast. And not that I care about the number as far as physically or saying I'm getting older or whatever. It's not so much that. It's like, I really want this financial freedom for my kids and my family by the time I'm 50, so we can just do a lot of fun shit together. But I also have to recognize we're getting to do a lot of fun shit together right now. It's fine. But it's something that's the one thing that I really have to step back and take a look at lately, is stop being so attached to accomplishing as much as I can in a short period of time. That's been the hardest thing for me lately. I value that time because I also want to be with my kids more. Man, they're hitting like this really fun age. Baby girl doesn't want to go to bed now at night because she gets FOMO because she's going to bed before Atlas. She cries, and points out and wants to go back out with Atlas. Anyway, what are your thoughts on time?
I think what you're talking about, especially when your kids are young and they're basically most available to you right now, right? Like these are the most special moments. And I remember when Atlas was born and y'all both took off, what was it, like 2 months or whatever?
Yeah, basically.
And you told me like y'all just stayed in bed and got like skin to skin time with him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
For as long as possible.
It was awesome.
And I was like, whoa, that's exactly how I want to do it. And then I started thinking about, you know, the age that your kids are at. I started fantasizing. I was like, man, I don't want to work on shit during that time. Like, I just want to fucking hang out with them, because I know as they get older, they're going to get busy with school and then eventually their own lives. And that, like, it shifted like how I thought about so many things, but it brought up a lot of fear and anxiety for me. And honestly, I'm not a parent, but I imagine most parents go through that feeling as well, which is you want to spend this time with them, and also like, you gotta go out and fucking earn shit.
Yeah, you gotta build your wealth, build your security. I think about it all the time. I'm like, man, I'm essentially still in the early stages of running this small business that is my studio. You know, if we talk about so many small businesses fail in the first 3 to 5 years. Well, I'm only technically kind of in year 3, maybe year 4-ish. And it runs parallel with the birth of my kids. So I couldn't put in those 60-hour work weeks to really jumpstart this business. And I'm grateful for that. I'm happy that I was able to get to spend that time with my children. But man, trying to run and open a small business, be an entrepreneur, have another product that I'm working on that I have to bootstrap also while I'm like maintaining financial security for my kids, it's a delicate balancing act. I do have gratitude that I get to do it all. Nothing is like quote unquote failing right now. I'm very grateful that I have these opportunities, but there is, I think, still a small part of me at times that I have to watch this and maintain a different frequency and vibration, that I don't dip into this like, man, if I was doing this when I was single and I could put in the time and the energy and the resources and the money to say like this product that's taking way longer than I anticipated, how different it could be. But it's not. That's not what it is, and that's fine, and I don't want to think that way. But it's different when you got a family.
For sure.
And you're bootstrapping things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is what it is, right?
Right. It is.
It just is what it is. So I relate it to my parents. Like, we got a family vacation coming up in a couple weeks, and my parents live very far away from me. And I get to see my dad like 1 week out of the year. And I'm like stressed out. I'm like, I don't want to take time off work. How am I going to take time off work? And I was like kind of dumping that anxiety on him the other day, and I had to back up. I'm like, dude, you can quantify the amount of time that you're likely to spend with your parents, you know, once they hit like the age of 60, if you don't live close to them. And it's basically like, I'm making numbers up, but I have a handful of weeks left with him.
Right.
And I'm fucking stressing out about spending 1 week with him.
It's definitely less than a year you have left with him.
That's crazy. Actually, I've read about this. Between the ages of like 30 and 55, our happiness is on like a smile curve. Have you ever heard that? So in your early years is when you're happiest. You don't have any responsibilities. Everything is brand new. First time experiences. It's fucking amazing. And then, especially now, like the stage that both you and I are at, happiness goes way down. Like 30 to 55, it just goes down, 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 down. And it's part of it is you become responsible for others. As your parents get older and your kids get older, you're not only responsible for your kids, you're now navigating, parents that are going into older age. They may have health related issues. And so you're responsible for your kids, and you may also be responsible for your parents. And you want to spend as much time with your kids as possible, and you become aware of the fact that you have very limited time with your parents left.
Right.
But in order to serve both groups, you're definitely responsible for one. You got to go out and earn it. So you got to put food on the table.
We got to stop talking about this topic. No, I'm just kidding.
and so like you just get forged in that fire of the trade-offs and that the happiness curves dips. But then once you get to 55, 60, let's call it, hopefully if you made good decisions, you enter a period of
twilight years.
The twilight years. You now don't have responsibilities anymore.
Empty nesters.
Empty nester. Hopefully you're in a good financial situation and you get to enjoy life again. And there's actually a beauty in seeing the reality that I have a finite amount of time left. And so they say, I don't know, I'm not 60, that there's like a level of appreciation that comes. I don't think that's guaranteed though. I've seen some grumpy ass old people.
Yeah.
But if you play your cards right, which we're in the period of time right now of playing our cards, going back to time, the CEO of IBM is responsible, employs hundreds of thousands of people. I cannot fucking fathom how that works. And I like to think about it in terms of it's basic supply and demand, right? Like, how easy is it to find somebody that could do the job? When you look at your own skill sets through that lens, like that shit gets real fast, right? Like I wash dishes at a restaurant. How hard is it to find somebody else that can wash dishes at a restaurant? There's a certain supply of people that can wash dishes at a certain
Guess
rate.
what? There's a large supply of people that can go be an Amazon driver. So I'm sorry, folks. That's why you only get paid $15 an hour to be an Amazon driver.
Sure, exactly.
It's not Jeff Bezos being a dick and only paying $15 an hour. That's just supply and demand. It's running a business.
And there's enough people that are willing to do the job at 15 an hour. That's why it's 15 an hour.
Right.
If every Amazon driver decided collectively to stop and say, we will not work for 15 an hour, we must make 18 an hour, then
even if they did that, then there'd be another batch of people that would come through and be like, I'll take the 15 an hour.
They might. If that happens, then the fucking wage is 15 an hour. That's just how it works.
That's just how it works, people.
It's not like there's no fairy in the sky making rules. Like there are people that are willing to do jobs for certain rates, and that's what. And if you want to change that, then you gotta
then inspire those people to not go work for $15 an hour and do better.
And then all of a sudden you're a union leader, and there you go. You're going to be making more than 15 an hour probably as a union leader.
I know people just they want to point the finger so fast at the CEOs, and it's like that's not what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting to think about. Like, okay, what is the difference between an employee or a business owner that makes $50,000 a year versus $100,000 a year versus $500,000 a year versus $1 million a year versus $10 million a year versus $100 million a year? What is the difference?
Yeah.
I think about this shit all the fucking time. I remember the first time I met somebody that was taking home $1 million a month. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? How the fuck do you do that? And so I spent I just asked a bunch of questions. I'm like, I need to understand.
I can't wrap my brain around that. Like, what do you do?
But it's $1 million a month. Crazy to say, but even that is not that much.
It's really not.
There are other people that take way more money off of the table. And so it goes back to the original conversation about what do you want, right? Like who fucking I don't need $1 million a month. I might enjoy that for a little period of time.
If you gradually worked your way to $1 million a month, I bet you would probably need that $1 million a month once you got there. You say that now.
Oh, no. I've spent years thinking about this. I could not in good conscience spend $1 million a month.
Well, first of all, let's be real. You'd probably only be taking home about 600,000 of that a month.
Sure, but even 600K, like on my lifestyle, I've done this exercise with Heather so many times. Like if we wanted everything in the world, like could I spend $1 million a month consistently on like shit? You probably could. I don't derive satisfaction from that stuff. Heather probably could, but I couldn't. And so I'll cap it. But Could I deploy $1 million a month to like execute on ideas? I want to fucking do this project. I want to do that project.
But that's the thing. That's spending. Call it deploying. You're spending.
Well,
it,
I'm making the distinction on lifestyle versus like different business ventures or just pure creative outlets. Like, and so my goal is to be able to make that much money, not because like, you know, I'll buy some nice cars and nice watches and I'll take a $10 million home. Don't get me wrong. I will take it and I will have it. Those are my goals. And also like, I need to be able to support my lifestyle. And there's a whole other extra level. Like I want to be able to build things and be like, dude, this loses $500K a year. I don't give a fuck because it fills my soul.
Yeah.
I'm fucking building 1,000 schools a year and like they're breaking even. They're not growing. Like it doesn't matter to me because we just fucking educated 50,000 kids.
Right.
Like I don't want to be 55 years old and still worrying about like, oh my God, the fucking S&P dropped by 8% and now my stock portfolio is at risk. Like honestly, and I've learned that lesson because I look at my dad, like my dad is turning 60 this year. And I look at the level of fear that he has, like he's well off. He's done well for himself, but not so well that he can not pay attention. Well
that he's escaped the fear of that money.
He's got tons of fear around money, like so much fear. And I spent years thinking about like the decisions that he made. And the thing is my dad was at the peak of his career a few years ago. When he made it to the very top, he was hired as a CEO of a relatively large company. So in terms of like corporate America, he basically made it to the top from the bottom. Classic immigrant story. You know, delivered newspapers in the morning, did Dippin' Dots at Six Flags at night, you know, got 2 degrees, paid everything on his own, worked his way up the corporate ladder. But even now, he has to watch his money super carefully. And I'm like, Dad, you're like one of the smartest people I know. You're one of the I don't know that you could get harder working. So why the fuck are you 60 years old and still worried about money? It's not a mindset thing. Like I know how much money he has, and it's like, yeah, you gotta be smart about how that goes up and that goes down. You can't be reckless about it. I'm like, why aren't you worth like $200 million? And you know why? It's because he never learned. And he admitted this to me the other day in a conversation. And he was like, I never learned to navigate my fears.
Yeah.
He's like, I let fear stop me for the majority of my career because now at the tail end of his career, he started, he recently, the company that he's working at is, some people are leaving to go do different roles. And one of the roles that they're going to join is at a firm that is like, he's at like a tier 1 company. And there he called it a tier 2 consulting company. And he's like, but the partners at this tier 2 consulting company take home $20 million a year. And I saw the look on his face. He's like, what the fuck have I been doing? He's like, I've been slaving away at these tier 1 companies and I've been making this much. But if I had gone a couple rungs down the ladder in terms of like brand recognition and shit, I would have been making fucking like 20 to 40x.
Yeah.
And he's like, and it was the fear of the job security of working in very corporate environment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Dad, in a way, I'm grateful that you did that because I had to look at you slaving away to these corporations and be like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, why do these people make so much more money than you? But like, I don't see them as any smarter or more hardworking.
No.
They just made different decisions.
We talk about this with our neighbor. She works for a big corporation. It's about to get bought. Their CEO just left. So now they're CEO-less and essentially it's kind of a team effort when they have to go present things to the board right now because it's not the CEO who is managing that.
Okay.
Anyway, she talks about those same things of the people that are in these positions actually are probably not that smart. But how do they get there?
They are smart. They're not that much smarter than you.
Yeah.
How
do they get there?
Even Warren Buffett said, he's like, you don't really need an IQ much higher than 120 to make as much money as you want. Granted, 100 is the average, right? Like an IQ is real. We like to, maybe that's not a great thing to say, but there are differences in intelligence the way that there's differences in athleticism and all that shit. Yeah. But 120 is not fucking Einstein.
No.
120 is, you and me both have 120 IQ for sure. And you and I, depending on how we wanted to navigate our emotions, the sacrifices that we wanted to make, could make as much money as we wanted to. And the thing is that the decisions are hard, right? And then it's just a classic choose your hard argument.
Choose your hard and choose your sacrifices.
Choose your hard and choose your and the sacrifices are fucking real, dude.
The sacrifices are, the more sacrifices you're willing to make, the more money you're willing to make.
100%. And
just like with athletics, the more sacrifices, the more likely you will possibly become a professional.
100%. There's a level of blinders that you have to put on, and that is why I go back to why I look up to companies and entrepreneurs and aspire to be the type that grows really big businesses, but I do not aspire to grow beyond certain sacrifices.
Yeah.
Like I'm
unwilling to
rape and pillage the environment, right?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't put my career aspirations above my marriage.
I won't put it against above my kids 1,000%.
And those are sacrifices that other people are willing to make.
Yeah.
And dude, people don't want to look at that shit, but we're all competing with people that are willing to make different sacrifices, and that's why it can be a little bit scary.
There is a part of me that thinks I don't have to sacrifice my kids, but I can still make it happen. It just might take a little longer.
That could also be true. Yeah. And then that comes back to the time thing that you were talking about, is like, okay, it may take longer because I value certain things, and it's uncomfortable. You just talked about that being uncomfortable, but that's the uncomfortable you're willing to live with.
Man, now it just dawned on me, something just clicked. I think because I have this hyper vigilance about time right now, it's because I think if there's one major regret in my life, I feel like I wasted time in like my 20s.
Yeah.
And maybe even early 30s a little bit. And that's why I'm so probably judgmental towards myself about how much I can get done in a short amount of time right now, because I did waste so much of it early on. That's a big regret of mine.
Yeah.
It's one I need to let go of probably.
I mean, it is what it is.
Exactly. It always is what it is. And how do I let that part of me go so I can move forward and not have time rule me right now? I thought about it coming in today. I'm like, shit, I got to get up early. The studio's not set up. I got to make sure I'm set up for me and Faiez. And then literally I had this thought. This is how ridiculous it is. To pay our rent here for the suite, they don't do a direct draw. I have to still write a check, which is annoying.
Jeez.
And put it in the mailbox. And truthfully, sometimes I forget. I'm just like, I didn't get it in there or whatever. I get it. That's my own fault. The place where I have to drop it is up on Shoal Creek. And there was this part of me driving in today where I'm like, fuck, I got to take like 45 minutes to drive up there and drop this check off on a day where I don't want to spend an ounce of time doing anything other than what needs to be accomplished in the studio.
Wow.
That was annoying me. Driving in today thinking about that.
I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty fucking annoying.
Good. I'm not the only one then. That's
pretty fucking annoying.
And truthfully, it's my own fault. I didn't get the check in the mail, so I get it. Like I'm beating myself up here.
Yeah.
And fucking take a direct draw. We're in 2024 now.
That's crazy. The time is reality. The way that two things come to mind for me. So one, that's just why I value the morning time so much. Because I get to pause and really consider what I'm about to do for the day. Because if we have limited amount of time, I need to be working on the activities with the most leverage. And also, sometimes you just gotta get shit done. And so there's a mindfulness towards the leverage on my activities and speed of execution. Like, how long do you let a thing sit on your to-do list? I used to be in the habit of setting reminders to get a thing done.
I used to do that too.
And now it's like, just get it done right now.
Same.
But there's a tension in that. But you gotta fucking get good at both. You gotta get good at both. And that's the discomfort of like, how do I do it? How do I do it? How do I do it? I gotta figure it out. I don't know, but I gotta figure it out. And then the other thing is that there's like a prolific investor. He was a founder of something called Y Combinator, which like a lot of the great Airbnb and different shit that we know about came out of there. And he wrote a blog post called Creator Time versus Manager Time. And I know you and Casey both told us at dinner that y'all thrive in creator time.
Oh my God, yeah.
And now you're telling me like you're trying to get as much stuff done as possible. And as the owner of a studio, there is like manager time. And the thing is creator time, you thrive on deep flow state work. It could be multi hours. You just go deep on a task. But managers have to make sure shit is getting done. Yeah. And that's like 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Like, dude, you should look at my manager day schedules, which is like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm fucking dialed down to the 15 minutes.
Which I need to take a lesson from you and probably start doing that on my more management days. I try to bring that creator flow into management, and I'm probably lying to myself thinking that I can do that, and I can't.
That's right. And so it's like respecting the requirements of both.
Yeah.
And so when I need to create, okay, I need to like, I tell this to our founder all the time because he's like you. He is a creator. But as a CEO of a company, he has to be a manager too, whether he fucking wants to or not.
Right.
Because you have to. And I'm like, dude, you need to fucking block off 3 hours on your calendar so that nobody takes that time. Because if you keep trying to create content in 30-minute windows, you're just going to feel like shit perpetually. Block that shit off, and I will make sure nobody fucks with that time.
Yeah.
And so, again, that's easier said than done, but I remember that helps me a lot, which is like, okay, this deserves 2 hours. And I'm going to protect that space, and I'm going to let the people around me know to the best of my ability. Honestly, you can't let everybody know that this is my creator time. So fuck off. That's it. You just have that fuck off energy. Yeah. Like, unless it's your wife.
Well, yeah. I can't have that energy here. She comes back here and walks in and
put up a sign. Creator time, baby.
Guess what? I do have a do not disturb on the door. It doesn't stop her. There's no sign that stops her. She does what she wants.
Yeah.
She's the queen.
She is the queen.
Yeah.
You should put a second sign
now
right
here.
I'm
better. I'm like, I should put a second sign on that
I'm serious. Do not disturb. That's the second sign.
I've actually gotten better because now she's like, can you come help me with something? And I'm like, does it have to be done now?
Yeah.
And then she'll tell me, and I'm like, no, that doesn't need to be done now.
You know about the Eisenhower matrix? I'll leave you with one last framework.
Yeah, to hit me with it.
Important and urgent, 4 quadrants. Yeah. Where is it? If it's not important and urgent, I'm in creator time. Dude, creator time, you can't even make that decision. It's just in an impermeable bubble. I'm in flow state.
I know.
I'm writing this shit or I'm editing this shit. Like,
I think that's, using yesterday as an example, I got caught up doing Casey's video. It took me like 4 or 5 hours instead of the typical 1 or 2. There was just a lot of edits, a lot of restarts from her. I also wasn't there filming her, so I didn't already have a sense of what the video was, which makes it longer. And it was this battle in my head of frustrated that it was taking me so long. Frustrated at her a little bit. I went in there and told her, I was like, you need to tell me when, because basically what had happened, she had filmed 10 minutes of a topic and I got through editing that. And then all of a sudden it just stopped. And she's like, oh, I'm going to restart. And she restarted the whole thing over on a whole nother video, camera A and camera B. And I'm like, I just spent 2.5 hours editing the version that you decided to start all the way over.
Oh no.
And you never even told me.
Ooh.
You got to fill me in.
Oh, man.
And there was this part of me that was like so frustrated that it was taking long, but also there was this part of me that was in this creator flow state of like, well, I don't give a fuck. I'm getting this thing done. Like, I got to get this thing ready to schedule for Thursday. I also, the creator of me was starting to do new little tricks with her video and this and that. So it was this weird internal battle of my mind wanting to fuck with me of like, oh, I'm so mad. It's frustrated. It's taking me forever. And then my heart's just like, oh, but I love creating this. It's so fun. Like I'm in flow.
Interesting. It's all the problem that arose though was a manager issue.
Yes.
That was a process issue. Like
there's a process.
How did she not tell me this?
Yeah.
What part of the process like failed that?
And that's where I've gotten better. I went in there and I was definitely frustrated, but also I was like, okay, here's the new system.
Yeah.
You tell me if I'm not there, what's going on with these videos.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my own fault. I didn't check in with her beforehand. I should have checked in.
Yeah.
So
we both live in the world of content creators, right? And like I'm deep with these short form creators and shit. And dude, so much of the internet is bullshit. Because in order to get attention, especially on the short form algorithms, you have to stop the scroll.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's certain human psychology that stops the scroll. And for thoughtful people, the downside of it is like a video of an adult punching some teenager at a skate park is gonna get more videos than my very thought through soliloquy on fucking whatever. Right? It's just the nature of the beast. There's a greater common denominator for sex, violence, and drugs. And so
and apparently little people too.
Apparently little people and feet. And if you look at the Pornhub stats of the most searched terms for each state, like,
oh my God, is
people are weird. No, dude, like in the Midwest, like tranny porn is on top. It's so crazy.
Interesting.
We can't get into that right now. That there's very interesting shadow shit going on there.
Sure.
But like, okay, so there's people giving advice on the internet about business, and I've absorbed that advice, but now I'm very much aware that like you have to say and phrase things a certain way in order to get somebody to stop and scroll on Instagram. And one of the things that creators like to bullshit about is you can have it all. And here's my 7-figure, here's my 8-figure playbook on how to build a business with zero friction that, you can live on the beach, sip Mai Tais, and you won't have to lift a finger because it'll be perfectly optimized. No, that's just not true. But if I tell you like, all the choices you have to make, the sacrifices you're going to have to make, and you're going to have to figure out how to do creative